How does Shigaraki sleep without destroying everything around him? Well, by not sleeping, obviously. Have you seen those luggage bags? In all seriousness, it's not that deep. Pull gloves, clench fists, or sleeping like a psychopath that he is. What's more interesting is why some quirks follow different rules, how do children survive the quirk manifestation, and why certain people's actions make more sense than you initially might think. Hello comrade, my name is Bachis. Come, get yourself a beverage and sit down with me. We got a suspension of disbelief to suspend. First of all, let me explain the last few words I said. A suspension of disbelief is a concept that applies to any piece of fiction and basically means I refrain from questioning certain aspects of the narrative as long as they are logically consistent within the story. It doesn't have to be some high fantasy stuff with dragons, fair maidens, and other non-existent creatures. Anything other than a documentary will have a degree of that. For example, my favorite TV series House MD features a genius doctor whose knowledge of all things in the world is so vast that the only thing preventing him from making the right diagnosis is the fact that he can't immediately recall all the relevant information until some random event triggers his memory. Okay, that was a slight exaggeration, but I am willing to accept that he is exceptionally educated and well-read, so that I don't question every time he pulls up a random piece of trivia he has no business knowing. That's a textbook suspension of disbelief, and my hero's equivalent of that would be the ways of the quirks are inscrutable, meaning that there is a great level of wackiness when it comes to their world. However, there are two parts to this definition, and my Hiraka often breaks its logical consistency through some quirks not following the same rules. Let's look at the Invisible Girl. That's a bit of an oxymoron. How is she able to see? Le Million can't with his quirk on due to light literally passing through his retina, so what's the deal with Toru? If her powers work in the same way just for light exclusively, she would be blind, as if her eyes were picking up the light waves, we would have seen something because there wouldn't be 100% of the light coming through. You can say, Mahias, maybe Hagakure is blind in a traditional sense, but any image she refracts goes straight to her brain, giving her a perfect 360 spherical vision. Plausible. So here's another one. If light passes through Mirio, how the fuck do we see him? What, is he literally being Sun Eater's light by emitting his own? That's what I mean by logical inconsistency. You take two powers that do something similar and realize that their rules are very different. Once the suspension of disbelief is challenged, it's hard not to question the show further. Like, how in the hell does this dude live? Forget talking, how does he eat, breathe, and again, see? If you can, even with our technology, fix the missing mouth and nose part, there is nothing about his kit that will allow him to perceive any visuals, audio, or smell. There have to be secondary effects for 99% of the quirks, because they just wouldn't work otherwise. Take Class B's teacher. His power would be debilitating past 30% blood loss, and seeing him use easily a liter of it here makes me wonder how long he can last. Granted, he is a big dude and has more blood than an average man, yet his quirk must give his body a resistance to blood loss in order to compensate for its active effect. This is where the Quirk Singularity Theory comes in. At some point, the powers will be so strong that the quote-unquote secondary effect won't be enough, and as a result, our biology simply won't hold up. It's been happening for a while, by the way. Dabi is a prime example, though you could attribute it to bad genetics, where his secondary effect of fire resistance was negated by his mother's weak constitution, on top of his power being greater than that of Endeavor's. Regardless, I want to talk about quirk manifestation, since shit like this over here would happen way more often, especially as the quirks get stronger and more complex. I don't think they ever talked about it from this angle, rather focusing on losing control than what it would actually mean. Simple, there will be a huge death spike in children, which will lead to most of the population dying out. The funny thing is, it's a somewhat self-regulating system, as once all overpowered quirk users disappear, the weak or quirkless people will remain, starting the cycle all over. The story is definitely holding back on this concept, because how does Bakugo still have his palms, let alone fingers? I've seen what happens when even the weakest firecracker explodes in someone's hand, and his sweat is compared to nitroglycerin. Not gasoline, turpentine, acetone, nitro-fucking-glycerin. Have a look at these clips.
We're now hurling a spring-loaded hammer into the center of a puddle of nitroglycerin. And 3, 2, 1. Whoa!
I'm gonna put a drop of it in my vise and whack it with a hammer to see what happens.
3, 2, 1.
In case you're wondering if nitroglycerin-like sweat is just a figure of speech due to both substances being liquid, you should consider Kachan flying and breaking blocks of concrete with his quirk. In order to withstand those explosions, his hands needed to be so hard that he could masturbate exactly once. Not to mention that the fact that he hasn't, to our knowledge, severely injured anyone as a kid is nothing short of a miracle. Children are not exactly smart in their action versus consequence analysis, and it will take just one random explosion to send a shot of something flying right into an unsuspecting eye. We've seen how quirk use can backfire severely, and it's not hard to imagine Uraraka accidentally killing someone Himiko style, Juzo drowning a friend or collapsing a building. Hell, even Togata launching himself into a brick wall at terminal velocity wouldn't be that unlikely. It's one thing to have a hardening power that gradually increases in strength, but a freaking cannon in an elementary schooler's possession is catastrophic. Somebody will die, and the story itself gives us an entire plotline to highlight this phenomenon. Overhaul arc. Eri is a quintessential Quirk Singularity representation. Her power is extreme, hard to control without training, and deadly to everyone around. Imagine if she was in a daycare instead of home. Her quirk would have claimed more than a couple lives, and unfortunately, that would have been one of many quirk manifestations gone horribly wrong, as it's the sad reality of living in a superhuman society. Another miserable aspect of living in such a community is a quirk itself, because let's face it, there are several tiers on their meta list. Great, cool, okay, kinda fine, really sketchy, and sorry parents, try again. I'm joking. Yet can you fathom giving birth to this guy or being a nurse performing an ultrasound? It's not even about the looks, as they will get more accustomed to it over the generations, but the question of whether it's going to survive or not. And what about quirks that develop later? Toga, for instance, was a relatively normal kid until her powers manifested, forcing her to crave blood. To me, that's one of the most interesting aspects of My Hero Aka, and though it's not stated anywhere outright, the Japanese word kosei that got translated into quirk means personality or individuality, implying a correlation between the two. It's simply in her nature to drink blood. Morality has nothing to do with it. She's genetically programmed to accommodate her quirk, and there is nothing you can do about it. That's why she went insane. All her life, she was forced to suppress her physiological needs, which, in combination with lacking parental love and understanding of why she's different, led to Himiko's mind shattering with all the subsequent implications. Huh? What? Why do I think that she wasn't like that from the get-go? Because her ultimate desire and the reason she joined the League of Villains is that she wants to be accepted and do whatever she pleases, which is exactly what our bubbly little monster couldn't do most of her life. In a way, she's that college girl who got out of a very controlling household and now parties, drinks, etc. non-stop as she felt freedom for the first time. It's the dark truth about randomized powers. Some are bound to be considered evil, and without proper guidance, support, or mental fortitude like with Shinso, they become one. The system failed Toga since she was sent to whatever counseling, who, instead of helping her in the way Deku helped Eri, made the problem worse. I understand that some people will fall through the cracks, but tell me this, what is the most profitable business in My Hero world? Correct, construction, which makes me wonder why Uraraka's parents aren't swimming in cash. Maybe some monopoly-ish took over and the small businesses can't compete. Anyway, another cool business idea is a quirk assessment and assignment agency. Similar to the job board industry, but for all ages and walks of life, they analyze an individual quirk to give recommendations on how to live a normal civil life and what careers to consider. Kinda like the Sibyl system, minus the law enforcement part. For example, if Little Miss Canines was sent there, they would have educated her and her parents on why she behaves like that, and may have even prescribed donor blood like any other oral medication. On top of that, employees with a triple-digit IQ would have said that with her abilities, Toga is set for life as a stunt performer for movies, an impersonator for bodyguarding, or as a voice actress to double the amount of lines recorded by the seiyuu. Man, post-production Mahi strikes again. They would know about what Toga's quirk does until she tries human blood, so it would be get her some to deal with the craving side effect and only then recommend a career path. There are many options, even for the most villainous quirks. Don't believe me? Let's rapid fire some. Decay, outstanding for search and rescue, Hero 13 won't let me lie. Blood Curdle, medical first responder. Trust me, any medic would sell whatever's left of their soul for an ability to instantly restrict a patient's movement. Forced Quirk activation, for teaching how to use quirks or test their limits. Poisonous gas, that's Nemory's quirk but better due to it improving perception. Larceny, any policeman would gladly have that for disarming suspects. Confession and brainwashing, anything from legal to being a show host. I honestly believe that most villains are just regular people who don't know what to do. The reasons for that can vary significantly, yet if there is one thing that all recovered criminals I know of have in common, it's a newly found purpose. However, it's much more difficult with quirks because they can greatly affect one's desires. Nature versus nurture. If Himiko's situation is the result of other people's actions towards her thanks to the way she was, this next person's actions match the quirk perfectly. Chisaki Kai, also known as Overhaul. If you thought that his plan does make any sense given his motivation, you'd be exactly right. But there is an explanation. He claims that superpowers are a disease that needs to be cleansed, and in order to do that, he's going to create a bullet that erases quirks, only to introduce a counter serum that restores said quirks. Huh? How are you going to return the world to its previous state if you're also making a drug that gives the powers back? Initially, I thought that maybe our confused alchemist put aside his personal beliefs in favor of restoring the Yakuza's glory, but it doesn't make much sense given that he abandons most of their traditions and constantly reminds us of how he hates quirks. The second option is that the restorative bullets are simply a means to an end, where he needs money from its sales to produce enough anti-quirk ones so that he can later stop making the restorative serum to achieve his own goals. Still, all of that is just speculation as there aren't any indication of that in the story. What is there is his ability Overhaul as well as the correlation between the power and its host personality. If we look at Chisaki's plan through the prism of his quirk, which is disassembling and reassembling, we'd see that they mirror each other pretty much one-to-one. Pure destruction or pure creation is not normal to him. That's why he's a scientist who does both equally, going so far as to contradict himself subconsciously. Take Shigaraki. His quirk is in fact pure destruction, and what does he want? To destroy everything. Though in his case nature and nurture let him do that, so there is room for discussion, as you can argue he wanted to be a hero, yet that was prior to manifesting, etc, etc. There are other examples of superpowers shaping someone's personality, like Yaomomo's quirk requiring a lot of specific knowledge, which resulted in her being smart to be able to learn it. Then there is Present Mike, who has a voice that he loves to use, Takayami being all calm and liking darkness. It's not always perfect, because some powers like Ashido's are just random abilities with little substance, but those who have some sort of hyper-focused, multi-level condition requiring quirk tend to have it impact their personality in one way or another. Speaking of which, how do some of them even get discovered? Let's say All For One. He has these holes on his palms. To do what? Cosplay as Zaku? Just like the quirk can affect personality, I think it encourages its use subconsciously, similar to how instincts work. We have plenty of those, and one of the most curious ones is the diving reflex which the infants have. They hold their breath underwater and even perform swimming-esque motions up until they are 6 months or so. The quirk must program both the brain and the body so it can be used, which implies it being discovered. The fact that almost all quirks manifest before the age of 5 confirms this theory and adds another aspect of my hero world to the pile that makes sense. Not all of it does. I'd personally give the world a 50-50 in the I don't believe department, which is not that bad comparatively speaking. Quirks are very diverse, and it's genuinely hard to make them work 100% of the time in accordance with the lore, so due to me liking this show and wanting to enjoy it, I'll pardon these inconsistencies by putting my disbelief suspenders on. It was I, Mahias, dreading the ending of the show into the microphone. Have a great, whatever time of the day you have. Until next time, cheers. Let's say All For One. He has these holes in the He has these holes on